The Dharma body is not appearances. Chapter 26. Subhuti, what do you think? Is it possible to contemplate the Tathagata in his 32 physical appearances? So Buddha now is talking about the 32 major marks. So he's asking Subhuti if we can find the Buddha. Can we find the Buddha in the 32 major marks? Of course, ordinary people cannot see this. Ordinary people could not possibly see the 32 major marks. But just for the sake of explanation, if someone could see the 32 major marks of the Buddha, is that the Buddha? That's what it's saying here. So is that the Buddha? So again, the Buddha already asked this before. Is one of those repeating questions. So Buddha said, so it is. It is not possible to contemplate the Tathagata in his 32 physical appearances. So if the body that is there, is not the Buddha, then what is the Buddha? What is that body? And what is the Buddha? Okay, so the Buddha is sitting there. Flesh and bone. You just ate, the belly is full. But yet the Buddha said that's not the Buddha. And Subhuti agrees, that's not the Buddha. So that body is not the Buddha. The body of merit, with its 32 major marks, also is not the Buddha. So what is the Buddha? So all of these things, the physical body, the body of merit, the 32 major marks, all these are still ideas. They are compounded. They are attributes. The body of the Buddha, the flesh, the physical body of the Buddha, it was a compounded phenomenon. It was born and it died. When we speak about the 32 major marks of the merit body, the same way. That's why there's 32. It's compounded. It's compounded. It is an appearance. So that's also not the ultimate way to contemplate the real nature of what is Buddha. That's why Subhuti says, so it is. It is not possible to contemplate the Tathagata in his 32 physical appearances. So if the body of merit, so if this body of the Buddha, the Sambhogakaya, is spoken of still in relative sense, we must understand that the real body of the Buddha, the Dharmakaya, the Dharma body, it is beyond all kinds of attributes. It cannot have any attributes. It is uncompounded. It has no form, no expression. So, due to the merit of the Buddha, we speak of a Rupakaya. Because of the merit of the Buddha, we speak of a body of merit, of 32 major marks. We speak of a body of appearance, of a Nirmanakaya. So because of the merit of the Buddha, we speak of this appearance. But we must understand that this appearance, both the physical body of the Buddha, the flesh body, and the Sambhogakaya body, those bodies, they are like reflections in a mirror. They are like reflections in a mirror. They are like reflections in the mirror of the Dharmakaya. Inseparable, not same, not different. However, they are just reflections. Reflections that manifest according to the conditions and according to the needs of sentient beings. They are appearances. That's why it's called appearance bodies. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if one could contemplate the Tathagata in his 32 physical appearances, then a wheel-turning sage king would be the Tathagata. So basically, you have to here we have to understand the meaning. So what is this wheel-turning sage king? So this is a Chakravartin. Is sometimes the way it's that's the Sanskrit traditional word, Chakravartin. So there's like an idea in the cosmology, in the cosmology of this universal king. someone that has accumulated so much merit, but such inconceivable amount of merit, that they manifest this life as this universal ruler, complete, power to rule the entire, all universes, like, the multiverse ruler, the Chakravartin, the wheel-turning sage king. So when the Buddha was born, I'm not sure how many of you know the details of all this, but when the Buddha was born, there was that sage that told the king, his father, Buddha's father, Siddhartha's father, and he told him, this boy, this child, this baby has such incredible merit that depending on what he does, there's two options. He either becomes a fully enlightened Buddha, or he will become a Chakravartin, a wheel-turning sage king, the universal monarch. So what the Buddha is saying here is that because this universal monarch, according to the, this kind of way of looking at things, this being has such merit that it also manifests this kind of merit body, actually. So that's why the Buddha is saying here, if you could see the Tathagata in these 32 major marks, then the wheel-turning sage king also would be a Tathagata, because he also has that, but he's not a Tathagata. So basically that means that anyone could accumulate just eons and eons of merit that could become a Buddha just by that, but that's not true. That's not true. Because you can only become a Buddha by realizing prajnaparamita. Again, we come back to the same point. You can accumulate eons and eons and eons and eons and eons and incalculable, infinite, boundless merit, relative way. And you can become the universal monarch, but you will not become Buddha. You will not become Buddha. You will rule over all the universes, but you will not become Buddha. That's what it's saying here. That's just a tremendous statement, actually. Tremendous statement. Subhuti addressed the Buddha, world-honored one. As I understand what the Buddha has said, one should not contemplate Tathagata in his 32 physical appearances. At that time, the Tathagata spoke a verse saying, One who looks for me in forms or seeks me in sounds practices a deviant path and will never see the Tathagata. One who looks for me in forms or in sounds practices a deviant path and will never see the Tathagata. We cannot find our nature in thoughts, philosophies, ideas, statues, books, texts, words. None of those things can ever come to close to even allowing us to see the nature of this mind. In order to discover the nature of this mind, you just have to look at this mind. That's it. So if we only see the Buddha like in a form, or we hear the sounds, or we read the books or the sutras, that's just the relative appearance. Relative appearance. And I think next week, when we talk about the early Buddhist schools, this will be interesting, because actually this point was one of the point of debate in between some early Buddhist schools. Some that really took the Buddha's teachings very literal, and really the physical body of the Buddha considered them to be just the Buddha itself. So it's actually a very profound point of discussion, but next week I talk about that a little bit better. So 27, not destroyed nor annihilated. Subhuti, you might have the thought it was not because he perfected his physical appearances. So that means the body of merit, okay? Body of merit. We're talking still about the body of merit. Body of merit. The physical body we already spoke about in the first chapters. That doesn't matter now. But about body of merit, Sambhogakaya. So Subhuti, you might have the thought it was not because he perfected his physical appearances, so the body of merit, that the Tathagata attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, do not think it was not because he perfected his physical appearances that the Tathagata attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. So, again, the Buddha keeps kind of, correcting, a bit left, a bit right, a bit left, a bit right. So because now at this point, maybe we think then, okay, then merit is not necessary. I mean, if even the Chakravartin, this, universal monarch that has accumulated eons and eons of positive merit, he's not Buddha. So maybe there's no point, in accumulating, in kind of generating any wholesome virtue. Maybe it's completely useless to do any kind of merit activities. So that would be kind of an idea that maybe we can have at this point in time in the text. So the Buddha is saying, yeah, no, don't have this idea. Don't have this idea. I actually wrote down here a line from Vasubandhu's commentary on this. Vasubandhu says here, someone may claim that since merit does not lead to enlightenment, merit and its fruit are of no use to a bodhisattva. In order to eliminate this doubt, the sutra continues. Even though it is not this merit or merit body that is awakening, the Buddha practiced and produced the fruit of merit. So Vasubandhu makes a very kind of decisive point here, that the only reason why the sutra does not stop here at this point is to correct now this possible misunderstanding. Is to correct this misunderstanding. Because, okay, sure, merit does not lead to enlightenment. We already understood that. We established that already. Chapters ago. No problem. Clear. However, if we have this doubt that merit is completely useless, then there's something missing. And that's why the sutra will continue to clarify this. Because, as Vasubandhu says, even though it is not this merit or merit body that is the awakening itself, that merit, what Vasubandhu is trying to say is that merit is inseparable from awakening. Okay, it is inseparable. Because the Sambhogakaya, it is inseparable from the Dharmakaya. It is a part of its own aspect. So this body of merit, which is what remains after all the gross sentient aspect of the being is basically dissolved, itself is inseparable from the Dharmakaya. And what results of that's merit. But again, it's not this merit of, I am going to do generosity. No, not that. That doesn't lead to anywhere. It is the merit that comes from not grasping. It is the merit that comes from not clinging, from not rejecting. When we are free from clinging, grasping, rejecting, hope and fear, the wholesome actions that arise from that is the merit that is talking about here. That is what manifests as the body of merit. You understand? If we have clinging to self, I am going to be generous. This is the merit of the universal monarch, of the Chakravartin. That does not lead to awakening. If we have no grasping, no hope, no fear, no clinging, no accepting, no rejecting, then the virtue that comes from that results in the merit body. Okay? So this is important to understand. Subhuti, if you think in that way, then those who have resolved their minds on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi would affirm the destruction of all dharmas, do not think like that. Why? Those who have resolved their minds on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi do not affirm the destruction of the appearances of all dharmas. So this basically means that that the end of suffering and liberation, the seeing of the empty nature of all dharmas. However, these dharmas were unborn to begin with. The what is destroyed. Do you understand? I mean, if we have this idea that all dharmas cease when there's a realization of emptiness, there's a seeing of the self-nature, of the absence of self-nature of all dharmas. If at that moment there's this idea that phenomena ceased being real, this is not correct, because they were unborn to begin with. They were never real. They were never real. So any idea of a cessation also is not real. And because all ideas of a cessation, of an end to seeing things as real, all clinging to that prevents us from actually manifesting the body of merit. The body of merit manifests from understanding that phenomena are unborn from the beginning. When we understand that phenomena are unborn from the beginning, then how can they end? What cessation is there to manifest? What is to end that's never begun? So the point here is, so the Buddha is saying, why those who have resolved their minds on enlightenment do not affirm the destruction of the appearances of all dharmas. They don't say that the appearance of dharmas is destroyed. We cannot say this. We cannot say that enlightenment is the manifestation of the destruction or the end of dharmas, because they were never there. So when we understand this, the body of merit means that then that expression is spontaneous, it is completely natural, and that itself is what we call merit, real merit, real merit. (28) No greed and nothing acquired. Subhuti, a bodhisattva might fill up world systems equal in number to the grains of sand in the Ganges River, with the 7 kinds of precious gems, and give them as gift. But if another person were to realize that all dharmas are devoid of self and attain patience, that bodhisattva's merit and virtues would surpass the merit and virtues of the previous bodhisattva. Why, Subhuti? Because bodhisattvas do not acquire blessings and virtues. So now the Buddha is not comparing normal people anymore. Now the Buddha is comparing bodhisattvas. So now we have a bodhisattva that fills up the world, a bodhisattva that does great generosity. Okay, so just very big. And there's another bodhisattva that realizes that all dharmas are devoid of self and attains patience. What does this mean? Remember, we talked about this before. This is that kind of forbearance, the special kind of patience. The patience that does not fear the birthlessness, the unborn nature of reality. That patience. It is, in the path of the Mahayana, is normally something that is, we talk about it like in the third path of junction, third level of the path of junction, which is the patience that does not fear emptiness, the patience of accepting the true nature of phenomena as being empty of self-essence. So, a bodhisattva that realizes that all phenomena are empty and attains patience, attains the true forbearance regarding birthlessness. This is much superior, much superior. That's what the Buddha is saying here. Because, so, throughout these previous chapters, the Buddha has spoken about basically three paramitas, mostly. Three paramitas. He spoke about generosity, patience, and wisdom. Three, actually. That's the most, I don't think, no. Those are the three only paramitas, actually, that the Buddha uses in this sutra. Is generosity, patience, and wisdom. And because this is the key point, again, and remember what I said, non-grasping, non-rejecting, and wisdom. These three. Non-grasping, non-rejecting, and wisdom. This is generosity, patience, and wisdom. Everything is contained here. Everything is the entire path is contained here. Non-grasping, non-rejecting means no hope, no fear, no clinging, no pushing away. The wisdom of suchness. That is everything. So that's why the Buddha has focused on these three throughout this sutra. The Buddha has focused on these three aspects. So Buddha addressed the Buddha, world-honored one. How is that Bodhisattvas do not acquire blessings and virtues? So the body of merit, the Sambhogakaya. Subhuti, Bodhisattvas should neither be greedy for nor be attached to the blessings and virtues which they foster. Therefore, I say they do not acquire blessings and virtues. So, basically, we should not be clinging to attaining virtues. If I'm like doing a lot of good things, I did such good things. No, this is then it's not very good. That's that very famous story again, when Bodhidharma met the Chinese emperor for the first time. When Bodhidharma arrives in China, and the emperor or this great Indian master has come, so invites Bodhidharma to the palace, and the king was very proud. I have built all these monasteries, I have built all these temples, I make all these offerings, I sponsor, all these thousands of monks and nuns and translations. I have done all this for the Buddha, for Buddhism in China. So you great Indian master, tell me, how much merit have I gained? And Bodhidharma looks straight at him. No merit. None. Nothing. No merit at all. No merit at all. Because of this. Because if we have this idea, I am doing all this. I'm doing all these special things. I'm doing all these special things. This is no merit. There's no merit there. Because Bodhisattvas have no, like the Buddha says here, Bodhisattvas should neither be greedy for nor be attached to the blessings and virtues which they foster. Non-action. Doing without clinging. No accepting, no rejecting, no grasping. No grasping to self, to others, to the action. Some people misunderstand this and they think that there's nothing to be done. They just sit, okay, nothing to be done. I just listen to some teachings, I think some wisdom, and that's it. I don't need to practice, no need to meditate, no need to engage in the path or something like this. This is not correct. But on the other hand, if we are very attached, very much clinging, oh yes, I'm doing all this, I'm fantastic, It's like Bodhidharma says, nope, no merit, none. It's the same point here. So chapter 29, I think, let me see. Yeah. This is very important. Chapter 29. Because now we are getting to the end of the sutra. There's only 3 chapters left. Now we're getting to the grand finale, the great closing of this sutra. So chapter 29, the quiescence of his awesome demeanor. So now the Buddha here in this chapter is going to make a real profound statement, a real profound kind of expression about the nature of Buddhahood. Subhuti, if someone says that it seems as if the Tathagata comes and goes, sits or lies down, such a person does not understand the meaning of my teaching. Why? The Tathagata does not come from anywhere, nor does he go anywhere. Therefore he is called the Tathagata. So now we are starting to close circles here at the end. Because if you remember in the first chapter, Subhuti was very impressed by the way the Buddha was acting. So the Buddha went to the town to beg for food. He came back, ate his food, washed his feet. So if you remember from the first chapter, and Subhuti was very impressed by the way the Buddha did all that in such a clarity and transparency and presence. So the Buddha now is coming back circle around here. So if someone says that actually that I do something, if you think that I went to town and I went to beg for food and I came back and I washed my feet and if you think this, then you don't understand. The Tathagata is unmoving. It does not do any of these things. The body, that appearance, that relative, conditioned, momentary appearance of a physical flesh and bone body appear to have moved. But that's not the Tathagata. That's not the Tathagata. You think you are this body. Apply this to yourself. You think you are this body. You think I am this body. You feel you are this body. Maybe you think you are not this body, but maybe that's just an idea. Maybe you feel you are this body. You feel you are this body. You feel you are me. I am me. I am me. I am this body-mind. But that's not true. The Tathagata is unmoving. Unmoving. The unborn condition. The unborn condition. Permeating all expression, all movement, all appearance. That's the Tathagata. That's what the Buddha is saying here. I wrote down, I wanted to read to you here. I have here two quotes I wanted to read to you. I took two pieces because I thought they were very important, because this chapter is very important. So to clarify this to you, I took two quotes, one from the Avatamsaka Sutra and another one from the Prajnaparamita in 8,000 lines, to really that really nailed down this point very, very nicely. So in the Avatamsaka Sutra it says like this: when water clears and the moon appears, the moon doesn't actually come. So if you have water that is very turbulent, it cannot reflect the moon. If the water is all full of waves, you can't see the moon reflected on it. But when the water clears, then the moon appears. But the moon didn't come from anywhere. The moon didn't appear anywhere. We think like the moon appeared. The moon came there. But the moon didn't come there. And it says also like this: when clouds arrive and the moon disappears, when clouds arise and the moon disappears, the moon didn't go anywhere. When the mind is pure and we see the Buddha doesn't actually come. When the mind is pure and we see the Buddha doesn't actually come from anywhere. Just like the moon doesn't appear in the water coming from somewhere. Or when the clouds come, the moon doesn't go anywhere. This perception of movement, thoughts coming, thoughts going, ideas, concepts, fixations, moving. When that settles, the nature of what is there, that is it. That is it. When you just sit, mind settles, mind clears. That's it. Some people may say that Buddhahood manifests, Buddhahood appears. No, but that's just like the same thing as saying that when the water clears, the moon comes, but not true. It was always like this. It's always been like this. When we just sit. Not dull, not distracted, clear, lucid, pure presence. And in particular, if we speak about Dzogchen, for example, if we are introduced to Rigpa, if we recognize intrinsic nature of awareness, just allowing that, the continuity of that, then naturally becomes clear. Becomes clear. But it didn't come from anywhere. There was nothing produced, nothing constructed. There's nothing new, in fact. Nothing new. There's surprisingly nothing new. In the Prajnaparamita Sutra, in 8,000 lines, it says like this. Tathagatas do not go anywhere, nor do they come from anywhere, because suchness does not move. And the Tathagatas are suchness. The Tathagata is suchness itself. Doesness. I said from the beginning, you remember when I started this sutra, and I explained to you why the sutra starts the way it starts, and the meaning of doesness, does it is. The Tathagata itself is suchness. Suchness does not move, does not come from somewhere, does not go somewhere, does not do this, does not do that, does not go to town or come back from town or wash his feet. Suchness is suchness, and that's the Tathagata. Those who grasp a Tathagata through form or sound, or who think a Tathagata comes or goes, are fools. A Tathagata cannot be seen by means of his physical body. The Dharma is the body of a Tathagata, and the true nature of Dharmas does not come or go. The body of an elephant, a horse, a chariot, or a soldier, conjured by a magician, does not come or go. Likewise, Tathagatas do not come or go. The Buddha's body does not result from a single cause or condition, nor is it not the result of a cause. It is produced by a combination of many causes and many conditions, but it does not come from anywhere. And when the combination of causes and conditions ceases, it does not go anywhere. It is thus that you should view the coming and going of Tathagatas. Suchness manifests due to causes and conditions. Due to causes and conditions, appearances arise. The natural liveliness of the ground. Now this is more Dzogchen. More Dzogchen. The natural liveliness of the ground manifests a multiplicity of appearances. When causes and conditions manifest, appearances rise. And yet they never move from the ground. They never separate from the ground. They are never other than the ground. Suchness itself. And if there is nothing but suchness itself, how can we say suchness moves? We only speak of movement from the point of view of duality, when there is an observer and an observed in a dualistic vision, karmic vision, then we think that it moves, something moves. However, from the point of view of suchness itself, what moves? It is itself. It is itself. It is itself. Where does it go? Where does it move? Where does it go? Where does it move? It is like, once I used the example of clay. If you remember. If you have a clay ball, you have a piece of clay and you make clay into a ball. And now, from a dualistic point of view, you say, this is a ball. Okay, I have a ball. And then you do like this, You squash it down, now you have a disc. I say, all right, now I have a disc. And then you mess with it, and now you make a donut. Now I have a donut. No, it's just clay. It's always been clay. It's never moved. It's never moved from being clay. It was never anything other than clay. It can manifest numberless manifestations, but it never moved from being clay. It's metaphorical speaking. So in the same way, suchness is suchness. It never moves from itself. It never comes, it never goes. That is the Tathagata. Due to causes and conditions, we say the Tathagata has gone to town to beg for food. Okay? That's the point. So, chapter 30, the principle of unity of appearances. Subhuti, suppose a good man or a good woman were to pulverize a threefold great thousand world system into fine particles of dust. What do you think? Would those fine particles of dust be many? Subhuti said, very many, world honored one. Why? If those fine particles of dust did exist, the Buddha would not have called them fine particles of dust. Why is this? What the Buddha speaks of as fine particles of dust are not fine particles of dust. Therefore, they are called fine particles of dust. World honored one, what the Buddha spoke of as a threefold great thousand world system is not a world system. Therefore, it is called a world system. Why? If world systems actually existed, that would constitute a unity of appearances. What the Tathagata speaks of as a unity of appearances is not a unity of appearances. Therefore, it is called a unity of appearances. Subhuti, a unity of appearances cannot really be expressed, but common people become greedily attached to such things. So basically, the Buddha here is trying to say that all these relative appearances, elements, appearances, phenomena, people, stones, rocks, mountains, cars, world systems, sentient beings, everything appears to exist as an infinite, interdependent arising of causes and conditions. That's all. That's it. There's nothing else there to say, actually. There's nothing else really to say about it. Due to the infinite, inconceivable manifestation of causes and conditions, temporarily, momentarily, something seems to arise. However, what is there to say about that? There's nothing to say. There's really nothing to say. We can say a lot of things, and we do. We make a lot of thoughts, a lot of concepts, a lot of ideas, a lot of theories, and all kinds of philosophies, and all kinds of schemes and projects and plans, and sure. But in reality, if we really look, there's nothing to be said. It is a moment in time. Moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. Inconceivable arisal of interdependent causes and conditions, always in continuous flux, totally empty of any intrinsic existence. The mind makes pictures, like snapshots, like it's always like doing a freeze frame on this inconceivable nature of reality, and looking to the world through these pictures, these like static photographs, and giving them names. So this is a world system. But there's no world system. But because we take a picture, we call it a world system. Yeah? That's what the Buddha is saying here. So basically what the Buddha is trying to explain here is just interdependence. That apart from interdependence, there's nothing to be said. There's really nothing to be said. What is there to say apart from interdependence? All views, ideas, philosophical views, all Buddhist philosophical views, ideas, It's just that. It's just thoughts. The nature of reality is inconceivable. It is inconceivable. The Buddha is also actually doing also a play here when in this chapter to introduce the principle of emptiness through a very classical argument. That when the Buddha says here, I have to scroll back, sorry. When the Buddha says, if those fine particles of dust did exist, the Buddha would have not called them fine particles of dust. So he seems to say here that they exist. Why is this? What the Buddha speaks of as fine particles of dust are not fine particles of dust. And then he goes on to the world systems. And then he goes on to the unity, to saying that what Tathagata speaks of as a unity is not a unity. So what is the point here? I'm just going to summarize for you. The point here is a classical argument that later gets refined. It's basically an argument that is sometimes called the argument of not one, not many, which uses the principle to explain emptiness or the nature of emptiness as a dichotomy. So it's like this: if something is either one or many, it cannot be both. Like if you have apple and non-apple, you can say like this: you have apples and you have non-apples. So if something is an apple, then it's not a non-apple. And if something is a non-apple, it cannot be an apple, right? So it's either one or the other. You cannot have both or in between. It's either apple or non-apple. So if you can prove that one of these two exists or doesn't exist, then you've proven the other. Do you understand? That's the principle of this argument. And that's actually what the Buddha is kind of hinting here, even though it's not explicit, by using this example. And the example is like this: if something is one, it's either one or many. Like, for example, I'll give you a concrete example. This mala. It's either a mala, it's either an entity, it's one thing, it's one. It's a mala. One entity. A truly existing one entity that is a mala. One. Or it's many. It cannot be both. It's either a mala or is it many, right? You cannot have both cases. So if we look, we understand that it's not a mala, because actually there's many little round things and there's a string there. So it's not one. So we can understand clearly that one mala is not here, because there's many things. But at the same time, it's not many. It's just, you get it? It's not many. So when you understand this, you understand that there's no mala, because it's neither one nor many. This is actually a very simple argument, but it's very profound if you understand it. You really understand that there is no phenomena, actually. There's no phenomena at all, if you really understand this argument. Not one, not many. Because it can't be both. It can't be both one mala or many mala. A variation of this argument, of this explanation, that maybe is easier to understand, is compounded and uncompounded. So an object, a phenomena, it's either compounded or not compounded. It can't be both, right? You agree with that. Something is either compounded, made of parts, something is either compounded or is not compounded. You cannot have something that is both at the same time. Not possible. So, if you think that there is an object, a phenomena, an entity that is a mala, in order for a mala to exist, as an entity, as a truly existing entity, phenomena, object, then it has to be not compounded. It has to be not compounded. Because if it is compounded, that is not an entity. And when we observe the object, we see that it is compounded. Obviously. So if it is compounded, it is not an entity, mala. At the same time, automatically, we prove that is not uncompounded, because it is not uncompounded. Conclusion, there is no mala. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. This direct conclusion, it doesn't exist. This is the argument that actually is being made on this chapter. Because then the Buddha is using this dichotomy of, the grains of sand exist, don't exist, the world systems exist, don't exist, because they're just interdependence. They are compounded, so they're not one thing. They're not uncompounded, so where are they? We cannot find. So why to be attached? The Buddha ends like this. But common people become greedily attached to such things because they don't understand that they don't exist. There is no such thing. There is no mala. You get this? There is no mala. If it's a mala, it has to be uncompounded. If it's compounded, it's not a mala. And we see it's compounded, so it's not a mala. So there must be an uncompounded mala. No, there is no uncompounded mala. So if there is no compounded mala, and if there is no uncompounded mala, there is no mala. Okay? That's very simply put. I hope you understood. This is a very subtle argument here. So, next chapter, 31. Knowledge and views are not produced. 31. Subhuti. Suppose someone were to say that the Buddha spoke of the view of self, the view of others, the view of living beings, and the view of a life. Subhuti, what do you think? Does that person understand the meaning of my teachings? No, world-honored one. That person does not understand the meaning of the Tathagata's teachings. Why? What the world-honored one spoke of as the view of a self, the view of others, view of living beings, and the view of a life is not the view of self, view of others, view of living beings, and the view of life. Therefore, they are called the view of self, view of others, view of living beings, and the views of a life. So, now we're getting one step further. So what is the Buddha saying here now? Don't be attached to views. Very simply put, don't be attached to views. So that's like one of the final steps now. Because now maybe we start to be attached to the view. Maybe we start to understand the Mahayana view. This view of the Bodhisattva. This view of emptiness. And maybe we become attached to the view itself. And the Buddha is saying here, no, don't be attached to the view either. There's nothing there. And on having no attachment to views, that is the real view. I often say this actually, when people sometimes ask about, like these kind of, philosophical systems about the view. Like a Madhyamika view, for example, like Prasangika view. Where is Prasangika view the highest view or this view? And I always say, what I always say is, Prasangika is not a view. Madhyamika is not a view. People that make Madhyamika into a view, they're attached to views. They don't understand Madhyamika. Madhyamika is not a view. Madhyamika is not a view. If we define Madhyamika as a view, then we are projecting a philosophical system there. We don't understand really what the meaning of Madhyamika is. Then becoming attached to the views. And then we debate. We argue. We argue about views. And that's what the Buddha is saying here. Don't do that. Don't be attached to views. Even to that you cannot be attached. So basically, at this point now, the Buddha here is completing another circle, coming back again. To basically say that to any clinging to any view, but any, even the Mahayana view, even the Madhyamika view, any clinging to any view will prevent us from recognizing suchness, from recognizing the true nature of how things are. So we are not denying, we are not denying anything. We're not rejecting phenomena. We're not rejecting appearances. It's not the point. The point is that not clinging to anything. Not clinging to existence, not clinging to emptiness, not clinging to non-existence, not clinging to this view, to that view, This view is highest, that view is highest. No, Prasangika is higher than Svatantrika, Dzogchen is higher view. This is pointless, This is pointless. This is really pointless. This is clinging to views. Subhuti, those who have resolved their minds on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should, in regard to all dharmas, thus know, thus perceive, and thus believe. Wow. Now, again, like I said, now we're coming really full circle. And I told you in the beginning, pay attention to the word thus in this sutra. Subhuti, those who have resolved their minds on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should, in regard to all dharmas, in regard to all phenomena, thus know, thus perceive, thus believe and understand. Thus perceive, thus know, thus, just does know. I just know. You just know. What does it mean just know? You are not a stone. You are not like a stone. You are present. You know. What does it mean to know? You are aware. Just that. Just that. Nothing else. Just that. It's purely that. You are not like a rock. You are not like a rock. Just that alone. Of course, then mind develops. Mind develops consciousness. Consciousness of thinking, thoughts, me, consciousness of appearances becomes dualistic. But besides all that, even with all that, there's just no. Does know. Just that, does know. Does perceive. Does perceive. Do you understand? Doesness perceive. Doesness perceives. Thatness perceives. Thatness knows. That doesness is what you need to recognize. Just that. So, and does believe and understand and not set up appearances of dharmas means to go beyond appearances, go beyond judgment, go beyond all views. Go beyond. There's this prayer, there's this very small prayer to Buddha Shakyamuni that says, I pay homage to the Tathagata, the one who has no views. I pay homage to the Tathagata, the one who has no views. No views. It's beyond all views, beyond all judgment. Like this. Subhuti, what the Tathagata speaks of as appearances of dharmas are not appearances of dharmas. Therefore, they are called appearances of dharmas. So, all these appearances of phenomena, they are illusory. The recognition of that, the recognition of this illusory condition, this is the appearance of dharma. We call like that the appearance of dharma. Does know that. Does know that. Like this. Just simply this. No attachment to any view, to any philosophy. No attachment to any kind of way of perceiving. Because if we are attached to a way of perceiving, we are becoming narrow. We are becoming fixated. And then we cannot just be in the doesness, in that pure presence. Final chapter, 32. Responses and transformations are unreal. Subhuti, suppose someone were to feel measureless asamkhya's of world systems with the 7 precious jewels and give them as an offering. Further, if a good man or a good woman who has resolved his mind on body were to receive, uphold, read, or recite and extensively explain for others as little as 4 lines of verse from this sutra, the latter person's blessings would surpass those of the former person. How should this sutra be explained for others? So now the Buddha is really, what is the Dharma here, and how is that Dharma to be understood? How is that Dharma to be expressed and explained? How is this sutra to be explained? What is the right way to teach this sutra? So, so how should this sutra be explained for others? By not grasping at appearances and being in unmoving doesness. That's the real nature of this sutra. Not grasping at appearances and being in unmoving doesness. Does know, does perceive. That is the meaning of this sutra, and that's how this sutra should be taught. If this sutra is taught, explained in this way, that is in accordance with the Buddha's teaching. If not, it's not. Very simple. But it is taught. See, this is the point here. So the Buddha says here, how should this sutra be explained to others? So the Buddha is clearly saying here that this sutra should be explained. However, when it is explained by not grasping at appearances and being in unmoving doesness. From an unmoving doesness, the explanation arises. So this is like saying that from unmoving doesness, compassion manifests. It's always this place, always like this. The natural arising from doesness. Why? Why? All conditioned dharmas are like a dream, an illusion, a bubble or a shadow, like dew or like a lightning flash. Contemplate them thus. So this is how this sutra should be taught and understood. This sutra itself, it is like a dream. It is like a mirage, like an illusion, like a bubble, like all appearances, no different. All from the beginning of this sutra, since the first verse. There's nothing else that has been taught here other than that. I hope now you understand. From the first day we started to study this sutra, there's nothing else other than was taught than this. This is a dream. Appears, but it's like a dream. There's nothing concrete here. When we grasp, when we cling, when we reject, we are in delusion. When we understand, recognize, realize the dreamlike nature, the empty dreamlike nature of appearance, then we understand. And since the beginning of the sutra, there is nothing else that was taught other than that. We just go around and around and around, but it's always the same point. Always the same point. So this is how we read this sutra should be understood, contemplated, taught, explained, and reflected upon, is with this kind of understanding. After the Buddha spoke this sutra, the elders Subhuti, all the bhikshus, bhikshunis, upasakas and upasikas, and all the gods, humans and asuras, and others from all the worlds, having heard what the Buddha had said, were extremely happy, faithfully accepted it, and put it into practice. And this completes the Diamond Sutra text. I hope this was of benefit. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was positive for you. Do you have any questions? We complete this sutra. I'm really, truly very much happy to have had the chance to share this with you. to be here with you during this, these days that we've done this 6 days, 6 Wednesdays. I hope you truly, come back to this sutra for yourself and read it, contemplate upon it, recite it. I think now, after these days, you can understand, at least, understand what is happening here and how to read it, how to contemplate upon it, how to go through this text, this teaching. And I hope also I could, at least a little bit, despite my very limited capacity, to convey to you the meaning and how important it is. How this is the Buddha's mind itself. Every other Dharma is not separate from this. If we understand this, Dzogchen is not different from this, Mahamudra is not different from this. There is absolutely no Buddha Dharma teaching at all that is not here included. If you understand this, your view will always be right, correctly, in the right point. No matter what Dharma teaching you're listening to, being Dzogchen teaching or whatever other kind of teaching, if you get this, you never make mistake. You're always on the right point. That's why I found this fundamental to really go through this with you, and I hope that it bears fruit. That's my aspiration, that you all find your nature, discover your mind truly beyond all views. So thank you very much. I wish you a good evening, good night, and I see you then. If you have no questions, I see you then next time, and take care.